Hi everyone, my name is Sajid Amit and welcome to another review on the Amplify YouTube channel. In this review, I want to take you through the iFi Hip DAC. I've done a lot of reviews of expensive gear and I wanted to get into more affordable gear, which I think is likely to have a broader appeal, especially gear that is interesting to me and not just because they're affordable. So this DAC Amp combo from iFi comes in at around $150. And honestly, I was really positively surprised by how great this sounded of IMs, headphones, you name it. So in this review, I'll take you through specs of this DAC Amp combo, and I'll do some comparisons with the topping NX4 DSD and with the FiO Q3, which comes at around a similar price. Another very interesting DAC Amp combo. And I also want to take you through my own impressions of how the Hip DAC pairs with the Focal Clear, which is a flagship headphone that's somewhat expensive, and the Sennheiser AG650, which is an iconic headphone but slightly more affordable, because I really want to make the point that this is a powerful DAC Amp combo. So if you wanted a lowdown and sort of like the quick and dirty version of this review, this is a powerful DAC Amp combo with great bass, and go for it if this is within your budget and that's all you want to spend. Now for the deeper dive. In terms of specs, so the first thing, like I said, that stands out is its power. You have 0.4 watts, which I think is a lot. 400 milliwatts is enough to drive most headphones in the market. So of course it's not going to drive a Susvara, but it's enough to drive most headphones, like I said. It's got a couple of connectors. So it has the balance connector here, the 4.4, and it has the single-ended connector here, the 3.5. You have a USB-C port for charging, and you have the audio input connected through a USB male A port, which goes in here. And other features include this power match button here and this X bass button here. It has a bunch of cables that it comes with. You get an OTG cable with which you can connect your phone, but I've mostly used it with my laptop. And the DAC inside is a Burr Brown DAC, which, as a lot of you know, is warm and analogish sounding, so to speak. The formats that this DAC Amp combo can play include DSD, DXD, PCM, and MQA. Now, how does this sound? Which I think is what you're here for. This sounds excellent. And what do I mean by that? So first of all, it has great bass. It has sweet mids, and the treble is engaging. And I like to think that, a rolled off treble isn't a good treble because then you don't get the full frequency spectrum. But this does not have a rolled off treble, but it's not offensive by any means. Now, I want to talk about maybe a comparison with, the FiO Q3, the Audioquest Dragonfly Cobalt, and the topping NX4 DSD. Now, first and foremost, I don't have the Audioquest Dragonfly Cobalt on me right now, but I've owned it, I've sold it, I've brought it back for a listening session, and so the Cobalt is brightish. It has a bit of a saber glare, and I didn't necessarily like the Cobalt sound signature, although a lot of my friends do, but I do think that this is slightly more natural sounding than the Cobalt. In terms of its comparison with the NX4 DSD, the topping NX4 DSD, I thought this also outperformed the topping NX4 DSD. And although you see the topping's photograph on my thumbnail, I don't have it on me, but I've tested it with the iFi Hip DAC. And I think overall, the topping NX4 DSD has decent bass, decent slam, but it's slightly more clinical sounding. And it's not very resolving. I think this is a slightly more resolving DAC Amp combo than the topping NX4 DSD. Now, in terms of its comparison with the FiO Q3, this is another interesting DAC Amp combo with very similar features. It has a power gain adjustment and a bass boost. I think that the Q3 and the iFi Hip DAC are very comparable, and there's not a whole lot to choose between them. They have very different sound signatures, of course. This is slightly more neutral, and this is slightly warmer. This is slightly bassier. I did sense that the FiO was better at separation and imaging and layering, which was interesting. I thought cymbals sounded better on the FiO Q3, so I do think that this handles treble better. However, vocals sound way better on the iFi Hip DAC, and they have more body, and because it's warmer. And the other thing worth noting is that in terms of tonality, I thought that there was a slight lower treble dip here and more energy in the air frequency. So what would happen is, I think, in cymbals and how cymbals sound might come off as more airy than usual on the Hip DAC. Now, to talk about its power, which I think is one of its selling points, This is very powerful. So it has driven my focal clear beautifully. Let me just show you the focal clear. So the focal clear on the Hip DAC sounds amazing. It doesn't sound as good and as resolving as on my full-size headphone amps, but it does sound punchy and resolving, and it gets plenty loud. I do think that on the focal clear, what happens is you get a slightly muted lower treble, which I think is the tonality that the Hip DAC offers, but you get good upper treble, and you get a lot of travel on the volume dial. Good imaging, of course, great bass, and if you use the bass boost function with the focal clear, which is already a very bassy headphone, what tends to happen is you get this really visceral bass, which I liked, and I feel like that bass could be too much for a lot of people, but I like the bass for a change. The other headphone that I've tried to drive with the iFi Hip DAC is the iconic Sennheiser HD650, which once used to be my favorite headphone until I experienced the HiFi Susvara. In any case, so this is a headphone that all of you will know tons about, and there's a lot of discussion about amps that can drive this headphone, and I think there's a lot of consensus about how you need an OTL for the HD650 to sound its best, like a bottlehead crack or a Felix amp, for instance. While that may be true, I did think that this Sennheiser HD650 is complemented very well by the iFi Hip DAC sound signature, and if you want to know what that means, I think the HD650 can be too laid back sometimes for my tastes. So this was less laid back and more energetic on the iFi Hip DAC. So there was dynamism, there was punch, especially with the bass boost on. So I did have the bass boost on, which really worked well with the HD650. As a matter of fact, I've decided that when I take short trips, I'm going to take this with me, and the HD650, because it's so portable and light. So as I said, the bass boost is one of its standout features. I've seen the bass boost and I've heard it on a lot of other DAC Amp combos like this, and in a lot of cases the bass boost can sound artificial and just simply annoying on many DAC Amp combos, but that was not the case with the iFi Hip DAC. I thought the bass boost here was spectacular for the price. So I've discussed power, but if you want to know specifics, on 12 o'clock you can get the HD650 plenty loud, which is saying a lot. Of course, again, you lose some tonal characteristics of the HD650, but I still think it sounds amazing, and I mean it. Weaknesses, I don't see many major weaknesses with the iFi Hip DAC for its price point. If you use super sensitive IEMs, it can get too loud too fast unless you have it on low gain, or unless you use low gain. There's also no Bluetooth, if that matters. Some people care a lot about Bluetooth. I personally don't always. And lastly, the battery takes a bit of time to charge. It takes about 2 hours to charge, and you get about 5 to 7 hours of charging time, of listening time, I'm sorry. Now, the final verdict, of course, this is an outstanding DAC Amp combo for its price, and I highly recommend it. I love the color. I love how it looks. It's, of course, reminiscent of a hip flask, which is why it's called Hip DAC, and of course, it looks hip. It's got a lovely color, a bit of aquamarine going on. And yeah, so I hope you find this review useful. If you have more questions about this DAC Amp combo, of course, you should feel free to drop me an email, or send me a message, or just drop a message on the YouTube video. And of course, I'll try to get back to you ASAP. I hope this review was useful, and please subscribe and stay tuned for further videos on. And I do hope to cover not just top of the line equipment, but more affordable equipment going forward, including IEMs, DAC Amp combos, dongles, and what have you. That's it for this review. I hope this was enjoyable as well, and stay tuned and stay safe during COVID. Bye.